Welcome to Across the Balkans. I'm Nafisa Latic. Great to have your company. Slovenia has approved a decision to recognize Palestine as an independent state with a majority vote in the parliament. This way, it dismissed earlier calls by the opposition party for a referendum on the issue. Well, this comes as support for Palestine appears to be growing in Europe, where more states are considering this move to pressure Israel to end the conflict in Gaza. Slovenia's push for recognition comes just days after the Republic of Ireland and Spain officially recognized Palestine in late May, in accordance with the pre-1967 borders, with occupied East Jerusalem as its capital. Norway, which is not part of the bloc, also joined them. Other EU members which recognize a Palestinian state are Romania, Bulgaria, Poland, the Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary, Greek-administered Cyprus and Sweden. However, Hungary and the Czech Republic showed more solidarity with Israel's government than with the Palestinians since the start of the conflict in Gaza.
Today is a historic day. The National Assembly of Slovenia has officially recognized Palestine, making Slovenia the 147th country to do so. This recognition is an expression of our commitment to peace and justice. Slovenia is on the right side of history, contributing to the two-state solution for lasting peace.
It is important that the Slovenian state has recognized the Palestinian state. It is not just a political gesture. It is much more than that. We as a state are proving that we are not afraid. Despite big players, we can be on the right side of history.
Let's speak now to Bojko Bucar. He is a professor of political sciences at the University of Ljubljana. Professor Bucar, there were several hurdles. At one point, I was thinking we might wait for another month until this procedure ends. But now it's finished. Slovenia has recognized a Palestinian state. What were the main arguments by the government for this move?
Well, the argument changed a little bit, and as you have said, there was quite basically a difference of opinion also within the ruling parties in Slovenia. But anyway, formally they say that it is a moral duty, that it is an honest act, that they were basically following the mantra of a two-state solution, that this is a precondition for a lasting peace in the Middle East, and well, similar arguments. They're basically political and moral, I would say.
Why didn't Slovenia join the Republic of Ireland, Norway and Spain and recognize the Palestine in late May? What did this tell us about the situation in Slovenia itself?
Yeah, well, it's very difficult to say because, you know, the messages from the government were rather mixed for a long time, when they will recognize and how they will recognize and so on. And basically why there was a difference, I think, between the foreign ministry of our government and the government or the prime minister itself. So it took a little bit of time. But now I think that finally they are following the long-time pressure of different groups that wanted basically to have the recognition of Palestine. And I think also, of course, there were other factors in play. For example, the political parties, I believe, were convinced that this issue will enhance their results in the upcoming European elections. Well, at the end, basically, I think I do have to mention that the Slovenian Prime Minister has been visiting Algeria at the end of May in 2024, and he visited Algeria to promote political, scientific, cultural ties between the two countries, but also to expand the planned volume of gas that will be exported from Algeria to Slovenia. And immediately after he returned from Algeria, he said, "Now we shall recognize Palestine at once."
But what is the overall mood? How would you describe the way the Slovenians are reacting to the war in Gaza and what we are seeing in Gaza?
Well, there are pressure groups around the Palestinian people who are here or who live here in Slovenia. Also, certain intellectuals who call on the government to recognize Palestine. Not all of them, of course. And then there are other vocal groups, for example, students. The Faculty of Social Sciences even occupied the faculty for some time, urging the government to recognize Palestine. So there was basically in the public there was a lot of pressure to recognize Palestine. However, I am not very sure if this is a predominant position of the Slovenian public. We don't have any research on that, and it might well be that this is a minority, but a minority that is very vocal, that is very seen. So this, of course, I think that influenced basically the position then of the government. As far as the public at large is concerned, I think that in Slovenia there is a general feeling that you have to be on the side of the small ones, on the side of the losers, or however you would like to call, on the side of the less potent actors in the international community.
Why do you think is the reason for that? Could it be that Slovenia also had to fight for its own self-determination in the past?
Well, I think it goes even deeper than that. Slovenia is a small country, and it was always under a pressure from the north, from the Germans, from the west, from the Italians, from the east, from the Hungarians. So they always felt a little bit endangered from all sides, and of course in dangers of much larger entities. So this, I think, is the primary reason. The secondary reason, of course, is then the issue of self-determination of nations and self-determination of nations and the fate or the fate of Slovenians in Yugoslavia and then emerging as an independent state.
But isn't it interesting that among other Balkan nations, and this, when we are looking at this part of Europe, Slovenia was one of the most vocal countries when it comes to the war in Gaza?
Yes, I think this is so. There is also one other factor that influenced a little bit. The state of Palestine recognized Slovenia's independence, or Slovenia as a sovereign state, as one of the first countries in the world. And somehow, also now the government says that it is a little bit maybe late, but nevertheless paying back this gesture of Palestine.
Right, and Prime Minister Golob said that after the vote. He said that 30 years ago they recognized us. We are even late to this. Now, this leaves Ljubljana opposed to countries like Germany, the Netherlands, and other bigger EU members, let's say bigger and stronger, but they strongly support Israel. So what consequences can this have on Slovenia? Israel has already issued threats to these countries that recognized Palestine in the midst of war.
Well, that is a good question. I don't think there will be anything going on within the European Union. We have to remember that now 11 countries have recognized Palestine. 11 countries out of the 27 in the European Union, and this is somewhat about 40%. And there are some signs that some countries might even follow from the European Union. So the European Union on this issue is very divided, and I don't think that there can be any controversy about that. Of course, it, on the other hand, doesn't mean that all the countries of the European Union will follow this move.
Exactly.
As far as the rest is concerned, our sources say that, for example, the United States has been informed about our plans to recognize the state of Palestine, and they just didn't react to that, which means they were not critical to this policy, the Slovenian policy, but of course they were also not encouraging it. It was somehow a tacit assent, and so we really do not expect that there will be some consequences from the United States as far as the recognition.
And do you believe that the recognition of Palestinian statehood, not just on behalf of Slovenia, but other countries, not just in Europe and in the world, can this lead towards a two-state solution? Foreign Minister Fayon mentioned that several times, that this is an important step. But can this make an impact to finally seeing that solution?
And I'm not sure if it is an important step, but it certainly is a step. By now, some 75% of states in the world recognize the state of Palestine. And those who do not recognize it are, I would say, there are fewer and fewer states. And this, of course, is an immense pressure within the international community. But on the other side, we have to remember, until Israel changes its policy, and of course also United States, there will be really no real progress. But now there is a momentum where maybe this two-state solution could succeed. I'm not saying that it will succeed, but it is a momentum where it could succeed. Let us see how things will turn out. But United States might well pressure Israel to somehow assent to such a solution.
Professor Bucar, Bojko Bucar, thank you so much. It was a pleasure to hear your thoughts on the recognition of Palestine by your country, Slovenia. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.